Good day and welcome to my seat by the fire. Today I'm going to work on my garden gate in my Down the Garden Path by Roxy Creation. So you see I have lace as my garden gate. It's actually two pieces of lace, the tall one and the short one, and I've just couched those down. And I don't come up with all these brilliant ideas myself. I often get them from books like this one by Judith Barker Monteau. And I've chosen to do these grape ivies, and you can see that's a curved buttonhole, a lazy daisy, and a French knot, although I'm using colonial knots instead of French knots. So we're going to start with the curved buttonhole stitch, and I'm going to go just down from the top of my lace. I received this lace in Happy Mail, and I'm very pleased to be using it. Now the gate and the fence are out of order because, as you will remember, the last thing we did was the wildflowers. And the next prompt was a vegetable patch. And then the next prompt was the garden gate, which I've decided to do second. And then the next prompt on is a greenhouse. So there are some benefits in doing them out of order, in that I'm getting some pre-planning, I think. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to add that tree or not. I'm leaving the green space there that I can if I want to, but we'll see. So you go into your fabric and you come up and you hold your yarn. I'm holding it to the left, and then you pull it up and you create that buttonhole stitch. And I'm creating this as a vine upon which to put my grapes that are hanging off my fence. So we've just returned from Victoria visiting our son and daughter-in-law, and had a lovely time there walking without the snow, which isn't in and of itself is quite wonderful. Here in Ontario, we're having another snowstorm today, so it's a good day to sit and work on my stitching. So I'm going to continue with this all the way around that first part of the fence, and then I will start to put the grape ivy on. So here I have done some of a full grape so I could see how it was going to go, and I'm going to use every other post to create a new one. So I'm going to start by coming in right at the bottom, at the top of the post there, and I'm going to create a lazy daisy. Going around there, pulling it up, and then going back down again. And I'm going to do the second one. And then where these two lazy daisies meet, I'm going to put a colonial knot. Coming up where they meet there, or at the top of that post. And now I'm going to do a colonial knot, which, if you remember, is you go under and over and then you stick it down the center. I just find them a little neater than French knots, so I do tend to use them more often. And of course I've got my yarn. If you use a needle where the head is smaller than the bulk of your yarn, you have that problem that I'm having there. So now I'm coming in at the center of the bottom post, and I'm going to put 3 colonial knots in a row. Creating or painting with threads is really, this is what I'm doing here. If you don't like something, you just take it out and start over again. I enjoy the free form of it. I enjoy the fact that I can let my inner critic go and just use the threads and the yarn and see where they take me. I do some painting, and I prefer the threads because I can pull them out, where with painting it's a little harder to cover up what you might consider to be a mistake. That inner critic is such a problem, isn't she? Now I'm going to put 2 in the next row, beginning to make that V of the grape ivy. My threads are caught at the back there. All of the threads and fabrics and laces that I use have been thrifted or gifted to me. I can imagine centuries ago, women, where fabric would be precious and threads would be precious, would create pieces of art like this, so that nothing was wasted. So we've gone 3, 2, and now I'm going to put 2 single colonial knots in a row. And then just a stem stitch to end it off with. And now I'll go over 2 of the posts and I'll start doing another grape ivy. So as not to bore you, I'll do the rest of the grape ivies off screen and come back to you. So here you can see I have finished my grape ivy on the fence, and I have added some wool that I'm going to couch down to form the door of my gate. And here is the wool that I'm using, and again, this came into the thrift store. It's got kind of a purple hue. It doesn't show up very well on the camera, but I've laid it down and pinned it down where I want the door, and now I'm just going to come up from the bottom, and again, my head of my needle's a little small, and I'm going to stitch it into place. Now this works all well and good until I get into those wildflowers, and every once in a while I will catch one of the colonial or French knots that make up the wildflowers, and it becomes quite hard to pull the yarn through. But we work it out. So I've couched it all down, and I added 4 French knots in the center to make my door handle. And you can see where some of those wildflowers poke through. So now what I'm doing is continuing the ivy, or the vine, the grapevine, all around the door. And here I'm just doing a running stitch all around between the top of the lace and the door to create the effect of the grape ivy growing up and over the top of the door, and then I will continue that down the other side. Now that the chain is all around the door, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add some lazy daisy stitches to replicate leaves that would be coming around the arbor. And so again, we capture the yarn and push the needle down, locking it in place. And then once I've got all of those that I want down, then I'm going to, at the end of each of those lazy daisy leaves, I'm going to add a colonial knot. And then I will come back in again and add purple colonial knots, replicating some grapes, I guess, growing on the door. And then I will come back and finish the other side of the door and fill in so that the grape ivy goes right across the whole thing. And here's the finished product. The grape ivy is growing all along the fence. And up over the arbor. I like how the purple comes in there. And then down the other side, creating the garden gate that takes you from the wildflowers outside into the garden itself. I hope you've enjoyed this, and thank you for coming along.